a look at the organs. Here, let me just bring that over there. Okay. So, anytime you have questions as to what anything is pointing to, ask your instructor during the test. That's fine. You know, what is this pointing to? Is it this one or is it this one? Feel free to ask. They'll either be able to tell you or not, depending on what it is. So let's go through the organs first. Starting on the superior area here, we have the trachea. You can feel the bumps of the cartilage on it. The squishy organ on the side is the esophagus. That one right over there. That's your esophagus. Moving down, we have the heart, which is here. If anybody, yeah, maybe you can pull that back too. Thank you. Might want to watch your thing there. The lungs here. We have the diaphragm. The diaphragm are what will divide the superior thoracic area from the inferior abdominal area. The diaphragm. What's up?
We're taking a picture. That's not a bad idea at all.
Someone else had done it, and they were going to put some on Blackboard, so check that.
Okay.
Okay. So diaphragm here. We have the liver. An organ, a whole separate organ, is the gallbladder that's in here. Usually it's a little darker in color because of the bile that's in it, but there's a gallbladder. You do have to differentiate the gallbladder from this one down here. What's that one?
Urinary bladder.
Urinary bladder. So when if this were the question, you have to say urinary bladder, gallbladder. Here we have the liver.
Could you point to the gallbladder again?
Sure, it's this little guy right in there. And again, most cats, it is darker color, kind of green, and the whole area is kind of green. Here's your gallbladder. Moving down, we have, kind of falling apart here, the greater omentum. And this kind of lays over the area, helps hold things in place. Kind of ripping up right now. Fatty tissue in there. The greater omentum is attached to the stomach, and it follows the greater curvature of the stomach. Lesser curvature of the stomach is there when we talk about digestion, you'll get into that more. Here's the stomach. Then it goes to the small intestines. The small intestines has 3 different parts. You do not need to know the 3 parts. You do need to know the first one, which is the duodenum. It goes duodenum, jejunum, ileum. Those other 2 parts you don't need to differentiate. And then it goes to the colon, the large intestine. So here the stomach going to the duodenum. Another organ, a whole separate organ, kind of held in the arms of the duodenum. We have, what organ's this one?
Pancreas.
Pancreas, good. It's kind of a cauliflower tissue-like that's in there. It does extend underneath the stomach a bit. Just while we're here, there are veins and arteries that go to the pancreas and the duodenum. So we call those the pancreatico-duodenal artery and vein. And these are the anterior pancreatico-duodenal artery and vein. Okay, we'll get to those when we go to the arteries and veins. So we have the beginning part, duodenum of our small intestines. Goes down to small intestines. Basically, you need to know that. Small intestines, which will then become the colon, which is the large intestine. It's just larger in size, and structurally it is different. I took a look at this area, which was kind of neat to see. So you see the different size. Here's the small intestine. It is smaller in the size here compared to the large intestine. And the area between the two, where they two meet, we have a part that comes down here. This is called the cecum of the large intestine. And I cut open here, and we're going from the ileum to the cecum, so we have an ileocecal valve right there. It's kind of a neat little valve, if you want to see it there. Ileocecal valve. You don't need to be able to identify that, but it was kind of neat to see it. So then it goes on to the large intestine, the colon. It extends down here to the rectum. Other organs that you'll see down here, here's our kidney, called the renal area, the kidney, the left kidney. We have the ureter, which takes the urine from the kidney to the, what's this guy? Urinary bladder. Okay. This is a female cat, and we have the two horns of the uterus. A cat is different than a human in that it has two sections of the uterus with the ovaries up there and there. Okay. On many of the males, if you kind of lift up or push down the urinary bladder, you can see the vas deferens. It's a little sperm cord, spermatic cord. I can show you in another cat if you want on that one. Those are the basic organs. On most of the cats, the trachea, or not the trachea, the thymus has been taken off. It's a tissue that is around this area. Most of the time you can't see it. All right, so that's the organs. Any questions with any of those? So let's take a look at the veins and the arteries. Let's go superior here in the thoracic area. So we'll start off with the heart. Here we have the heart. Let's go superior, and let's first look at the veins, the blue. Make sure on the midterm that you do identify whether it's artery or vein. Otherwise, you'll get half point off. So we have the superior vena cava. Okay, everything is dumping into this area, even though I'm going to talk about it going the opposite direction. Everything goes into that. One of the first veins that goes into the superior vena cava is the azygos vein, only on the right side here. It will drain a lot of the vessels and the muscles, the intercostal muscles. So you can see that over there. Oops. The azygos vein right there. It's pretty easy to take a look at in your cats. Just peel back some tissue. The main one that you need to recognize. There's intercostal ones, but yes, that's the main one over there. Superior vena cava. This is the internal mammary vein.
Really?
Also, it's known as the trunk of the internal mammary. In some places, you might see it thoracic, mammary trunk, something like that. So sometimes you see things different names. If you call this the internal mammary vein, that's fully acceptable. This is the vertebral vein. This guy on the side here. The superior vena cava divides into brachiocephalics. Pretty much any time a vessel divides, it changes names. So we're going to divide again here. Going to go to the external jugular vein on either side, external jugular. They will have a part up here, the transverse jugular vein, going on the transverse plane across like that. Transverse jugular, external jugular. Generally, the internal jugular does not get stained very well, or these are latex, kind of a rubbery product that goes in, so we do not hold you responsible for the internal jugular vein. So we have gone from the superior vena cava, divide into the brachiocephalic vein, going up to the external jugular vein. When it divides, it then becomes the subclavian vein. It'll continue on to be the axillary vein. It'll send a branch off here. It goes deep. It goes down to the scapula. So we call that the subscapular vein. Once it divides off there, it continues on as the brachial going down the arm area. Not real clear on here. But the brachial would continue on the arm. Okay? Like over here, you can see the brachial better going off this side. This would be the brachial artery and vein.
So it goes brachiocephalic, axillary, subscapular, and then brachial.
Got it. Yep. Remembering that order is real helpful. Okay. So, same on this side. Superior vena cava, brachiocephalic, external carotid vein, scapular vein, going on to the axillary, subclavian, going down to the clavicle. Excuse me. No, I got those goofy. We have the brachiocephalic. Oh, this is also the vertebral on this side, or the vertebral trunk, because it has other things that go off from it. The external jugular, going to the subclavian, going on to the axillary, subscapular going deep that way. Once it branches off there, you have the brachial going out this way. If we were to ask the brachial, we would make sure it's out pretty distal on this part. They're pretty much lateral over there.
The axillary and the subclavian, is there a branch there that differentiating? They kind of, I mean, they're pretty much the same,
It's
right?
a very
just a matter
small.
of,
Which one's medial? Lateral. Yes.
okay.
Yes. If it's closer to the division,
Mhm.
it would be the axillary. If it's closer to this area, the subclavian.
Okay.
There's probably particular areas that really differentiate it. I'm not exactly sure what those are.
Okay.
Is there a long thoracic vein in there, or is it only long thoracic artery?
There are both long thoracic veins and arteries. Other cats show those better. Okay. This does show the mammary veins and arteries quite well, the internal mammary. So here we have the internal mammary vein, and I'll get here to the internal mammary arteries here. But the long thoracic, I think, has been cut off over here. That one may be it. It's hard when it's broken off to tell exactly what it is. Okay. But over here, oh, here we do have. This is the long thoracic coming off here and here. Artery and vein on this side, going over here to more of the thoracic areas. Let's go to the red. We'll take a look at the arteries. Different than the human, the cat just has two branches coming off the aortic arch. So let's take a look. We have the aortic arch coming up to the brachiocephalic artery here. The brachiocephalic artery will divide into three parts. We have the left and right common carotid. You need all those terms. Here's our left common carotid, along with some nerves. Left common carotid, right common carotid. The third branch is the subclavian. The subclavian will continue on. It's been broken off over here. It'll send a branch off deep to the subscapular area, similar to the vein, so it would be around down that area. Okay? Once the branches come off in the long thoracic, it's now the brachial artery. Out here is the brachial. On this side, similar but a little different. There is no brachiocephalic artery on the left. We just have the subclavian, the left subclavian artery coming off the aortic arch.
So the right one branches off the brachiocephalic artery, correct? And then the left
Correct.
one comes out of the heart.
Correct, exactly. So we're talking about the subclavian. Good. One of the first branches, we have the internal mammary artery, and that's this one over here. So this has a really good internal mammaries, both of these guys. And then there's another little artery that goes off from the back side, from the posterior of the subclavian. This little guy, it's hard to tell because this one has been broken off also. Here's your vertebral, that little guy going off a little bit more posterior. And on this side, some cats show it better than others. So I will look on a different cat for that. This would be the vertebral going off that one. Okay. Again, that goes up the transverse foramen of the cervical vertebrae. If you remember that from last semester. Okay. So we've got the subclavian come along. Once it curves around that first rib, it'll become the axillary, going around the axillary area, your armpit area. This one has been broken off over here. That's a continuation from there to there. So axillary will continue here. We'll send a deep branch down here, right there, that one. That goes to the subscapular, going down to the scapula. Once that has branched off, and once the long thoracic, this little guy, has branched off, so long thoracic and subscapular branch off, it's now the brachial. So here we have the brachial artery and vein going off that way. Okay, so that's kind of the thoracic area. Any questions with that part?
Where was the axillary again? I'm sorry, I was cleaning off my.
Okay, over here on the left side, we had the subclavian coming along. Once it curves around the rib, which somewhere down there, I've taken that off, it becomes the axillary.
Okay.
Once it sends down structures, this deep one going down there, which would be the subscapular, and once the long thoracic come off, now it's the brachial.
So it goes the same order as the veins as well?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Same order. Sub, clavian, axillary, sends off things, and then the brachial. Okay. Any questions?
First branch being the internal membrane.
Yes, yes. There you go. And generally, the second is the vertebral. There are some other ones, costo ones, cervical ones up here. You don't need to know those.
Okay.
I think this is the thyroid vein. I'm not specifically sure because I haven't found the thyroid gland up there. But don't worry about that one. Okay, moving on down. Okay, many of the arteries and veins are found in here. Here we go. So let's take a look at the arteries. First of all, find your large arteries, kind of figure out where you are. And the abdominal aorta is the big one of the abdominal area. Abdominal aorta goes all the way down. And it has three main branches off of it, kind of like a backward K up here. We have the celiac, we have the superior mesenteric, and down here we have the inferior mesenteric arteries. Again, always designate artery from veins. Okay. You will also hear cranial mesenteric artery and caudal mesenteric artery. Cranial being of the head, caudal being of the tail, or superior, inferior mesenteric arteries. On our more superior one, which is the celiac artery, few branches come off of this one. Hepatic, gastric, and then it goes to the splenic. This hepatic is not real clear on this one, so you know you wouldn't be tested on this particular one. I'm going to move this back toward me a little bit to find the gastrics that we have here. Here are a couple gastric. Left gastric, common gastric artery here. You'll see, they're going to the stomach. Once those branches go, it'll continue over to this organ. Oh, I forgot to mention this organ. What's this guy?
Spleen.
Spleen. So you know the vessels coming to it are the splenic. Okay, splenic. The veins and the arteries go together here. So the splenic artery and splenic vein. Okay. It does divide into anterior and posterior. And there are a few of the branches coming off, anteriors and posteriors. Same with the veins, anteriors, posteriors. That's real clear on this one. Anytime you have a question, look to see where it's going. It's going over to the spleen. Probably the splenic. If it's closer up toward the medial, it's probably the gastrosplenic, at least of the vein. Here it might be the celiac. So celiac artery there.
Wait, which one's the gastrosplenic?
Would be this guy right here, vein. Gastrosplenic. And I'll flip it over and look at it a different way too when we get to the hepatic portal system. So then we have the superior mesenteric artery. And this supplies mostly the small intestines. Superior mesenteric artery. Okay, well, if we have the superior mesenteric artery, guess what? We have an inferior mesenteric artery. Again, coming from the abdominal aorta. If you look and see where this is going, it's supplying the colon. So this inferior mesenteric artery, when it divides, this section here, going to the colon here, is known as the left colic artery. Again, all of this is kind of over that way, so it is the left side, even though we have it flipped over here. So this is showing that left colic artery, and actually the left colic vein runs right along with it. Now, this is going to divide left colic artery and vein over here. When it goes inferior, it's going to go and give you hemorrhoids. So down here, we call this the hemorrhoidal artery and vein. But it's only the upper part of that, so we call it the cranial hemorrhoidal artery and vein. Those two there. Continuing on down here, this is our iliolumbar artery and vein, kind of in the iliac area and going to the lumbar area, iliolumbar. Okay. This cat does not show this iliac area as clearly as I have seen it in other cats, but I'll walk you through it on here. Basically, you're looking for two upside down Ys that are here. So the first division, and this is different in the cat than it is in the human, we'll have our external iliac artery. There'll be a little piece that goes down, and then it will again divide, and down there it's called the internal iliac artery, like right down here is the internal iliac artery. So external, internal iliac artery. The external iliac artery continues on down here. Once it crosses this abdominal wall, this will be kind of like this, and there's an actual wall there. Once it crosses that, it's the femoral artery and vein. So anything in this area, femoral artery and vein. Around this area, it sends some other vessels deep. We're going to call those the deep femoral artery and vein down there. This will continue on. You don't need to know some of those other ones that go off, but this, as far as the vein, this is the great saphenous vein. Let's take a look at some of the veins in here. Okay. So we had our superior vena cava. So what's this guy? Inferior vena cava. Okay, I'm going to let you guys do more talking. What's this organ?
The kidney.
What's the
Renal.
vein? Oh, along the way. Oh, I forgot to mention this one. Here we have a renal
Artery.
Good. Oh, the adrenal gland is this little guy right there. That's the adrenal gland. And it is different on a cat. A human is more superior part of our kidney.
That's what I thought.
There's the adrenal guy. Okay. So, one thing that's kind of an interesting oddity that we have about the other veins, this one has been broken off, so I wouldn't test you on that one. But coming from here would go over to this guy. What would we call that vein going over to there? The left gonadal. You will hear it genital also. So this would be our left genital vein or left gonadal vein. In a female, you will see it ovarian, left ovarian vein. In a male, you'll see it left spermatic vein. So there's different names for it. But the left one comes off here. It's kind of interesting. Whereas the right one comes somewhere directly off or into the inferior vena cava. It might have been this guy. I'm not sure. Sometimes you need to follow it out to see where it goes to be able to fully identify it.
Is that in all cats?
Yes.
Okay.
And
so
humans
right side.
also.
Oh,
Correct.
Cool.
Yeah, so the right is
From the
goes directly
inferior.
into the inferior vena cava, and the left is into the renal. Good. On the arteries, coming off of here, this one would go over to that ovary over there. So the right and the left ovarian or genital or gonadal, whatever you want to call it, arteries, both come off of the abdominal aorta. Probably this little guy there, or one of those coming off. So those would be the genital or gonadal arteries. Moving on down here, the inferior vena cava. Down here also has an upside down V here, or Y, and this is how it is in the humans. In that, once it divides, we have the common iliac vein, thank you, and then it will send a branch off for the internal iliac vein and continue on as the external iliac vein. The internal one is not real clear on this cat.
So when you say internal, you mean medial?
It does go
In
more
this-
medial.
in this case?
Yes. But it is called the internal iliac vein. which is similar in humans. The external iliac vein will continue on. Once it crosses this abdominal wall here, it's the femoral vein with its artery there. It also sends shoots out to our deep femoral vein and artery that goes down it.
So the iliac actually combines with the femoral, and
It
the femoral that branches out.
Once it branches, it becomes
Okay.
the femoral, correct. And continue on is the great saphenous vein. So, and just anything down in this more distal area, the
It's
great
the
saphenous
saphenous.
vein, yes. All right.
And that's going to be on both sides of the leg.
Correct.
Okay.
Let's take a look. Any questions with that? Let's take a look at our portal system. Now, the portal system, when we talk about a portal system, we're talking about a structure that has two capillary beds before it flows into, in this case, the inferior mesenteric. So two capillary beds, a bed in the intestines and a capillary bed in the liver. So down here, one of the main ones you'll see is this. What's that? Superior
mesenteric vein.
The superior mesenteric vein drains into the, here's the big guy,
Hepatic portal vein.
hepatic portal vein. You have to get the portal in there. Good. And this guy, gastrosplenic, because guess where it
To the
goes?
spleen.
To the spleen and the stomach. It tells you where it goes. Okay, so let's figure it out in here. Let's see. Yeah, I'll go that way. So the gastrosplenic, it'll send some branches off to the stomach. That one will eventually head up to the stomach area. And it'll continue on then the splenic after it sends the branches off. It will divide into anterior and posterior splenic veins. Here's our spleen.
Can we use left and right like it's in our lab book?
Is it left and right? For the splenic?
Yeah, pretty sure it says left and right.
If it says that in the books, then yes. But how would you have a left and a right?
I thought it was
Does it say left
anterior
and
and
right on there?
posterior. That's what John told us.
I know anterior, posterior. Why don't you show me later?
Yeah, I thought
Okay.
it said
Okay.
anterior, posterior, too.
Another vein here going into the hepatic portal vein is this guy. Now look
Is your
where
hepatic
it's
vein?
going. What's up?
Is that just your regular hepatic vein?
Nope, that will
It's the
be
long one, right?
up,
The pink
superior. Now look where it's going.
It's the pancreas.
Pancreaticoduodenal
That's the
vein.
long one.
And this is
Can't
the
see it.
anterior. On the posting that's on Blackboard, if it's going in, I think I called it the posterior, but this is the anterior pancreaticoduodenal vein. It runs along with the anterior pancreatico artery. Okay. Going on more inferior,
That's why I thought
we have this guy, which unfortunately has been broken off. Okay, we have our superior mesenteric vein, and this is our inferior
Mesenteric.
mesenteric vein. Now that one comes from this guy. It was connected up to this one.
Okay.
It's been pulled enough, it's been broken off. Remember what that one was?
Left colon.
Left colic. Good. So the left colic continues and drains up to here, becomes the inferior mesenteric, goes into the superior mesenteric. You can see the colon. This is all the
So the
colon.
inferior is just that's tiny.
No, this should have been connected to the left colic here.
So it's connected.
Enough people pull on it and it breaks. Also, in this area, not seen clearly on this one, are vessels that come off here. There's a vessel. That's the ileocolic. And we have one cat that shows it really beautifully. That would go to the ileum, which is the small intestine, and the colon. You can just see it coming or going into the superior mesenteric. Probably one of these coming off of here or going from that. Okay, this one's not real clear on this cat, so we'd never ask you on it. Another one which goes into the superior mesenteric is the posterior. Maybe this one, hard to tell because it's kind of been broken off. We have the posterior pancreaticoduodenal vein, which will go into the superior mesenteric vein.
So anterior's up here, posterior's down there.
Correct. Yep. And again, see where they're going. I mean, don't just see that part, but see where they're going, and that gives you clues. Oh, this one's going off to the spleen. Oh yeah, gastrosplenic. And then once it goes off to the stomach, oh yeah, splenic. So it helps you by looking to see where they're going. That's the benefit of having the cat. You can actually see the structures on it. And I think that's about it. Anybody know any other ones? Okay, any questions? Nope. That's good. All right.